What's up guys, today we are going to be looking at a little bit of a news post about the death costs, which is titled Death Cost, a Matter of Life and Death, which was just posted a few hours ago. I'm going to take a look through this, and I've just had a quick, very quick skim through it, and it's just got a lot more information on the death cost rework that we haven't seen already. So we're going to take a look through this. There may be some repetitive stuff from the first post that we've already heard about, but this looks like it's given a lot more information. So we're going to go through it and talk about it so you guys know what's going on, and obviously you may not have known to look for this anyway, so we're gonna look at it together. Now, it says death is changing in RuneScape. 2022 was focused on reflection and research, and now we're ready to bring the transformations in 2023. Read on for all the latest on the project. Cool. So death is a part of RuneScape life. That's funny because it's death, and we've been discussing death costs in RuneScape for a while. If you've ever taken part in Frank's Free Deaths, our no-cost death event, you've been a valuable part of that conversation. Last July, we shared some very interesting stats that came out of the event and announced that we'd be making changes to the death system as a result. These were our aims for the project. Okay, so they had identified potential confusion and pain points in how the death system works, and then encourage those who are afraid of dying to try PVM. This is the big part, in my opinion anyway. Make top ranking and PVM players feel less punished by deaths. Ensure that players understand how much they will pay for dying so they can make informed decisions about combat encounters. Sounds pretty important too, in my opinion. Analyze the state of the RuneScape economy and offset any reduction of GP leaving the game that results from reducing death costs, and foster open and honest communication with the community around subject death costs. So this is another massive part as well, which is why we're getting the GE tax, I assume, or I know, I think this is, I'm pretty much confident that's where the GE tax came from, but we'll get into that probably later on. We also said we'll go into more depth in the future. Well, the future is now. Today, we'll be talking about 1. Death cost changes, 2. Economy changes, 3. Other system improvements, and 4. A teaser for the future. Nice, cool. So there's actually a lot more stuff in this, so this should be interesting. Swap your scythes for a pen and paper today, folks. There's a lot to cover, and you may want to take notes, or we could make a video on it and keep it recorded that way. We've even thrown in a couple of quiz questions to clear your post-Christmas brain fog. Let's dive in. Cool. Why death costs changes? What? Why death costs changes? Okay, you don't need to make any clever tools with the invention skill to analyze the problem here. Death is simply too expensive in RuneScape, but how did it get this way? How did it get to be this way? First, we need to look back in 2014 and 15 when the system was designed and released. We had 2 key factors influencing death cost. Gravestones. Gravestones were the main death mechanic. Failing to reach a gravestone meant all drops were lost. This problem was problematic for a number of reasons. If a bag put a gravestone in an accessible location, a bag, items couldn't be retrieved. Yep, fair enough. Many locations needed an adjacent graveyard area, so graves weren't placed in boss areas. And even then, it could be really difficult to find your own gravestone on the new content launches. I agree. I think I stressed at one point doing racks. Now, racks wasn't even new at this point, but I didn't know where the gravestone was or the graveyard was. And I was looking, I was like, is it not outside the boss room? Where is my gravestone? And it was in the graveyard. And I finally found it. But yeah, if you lost internet connection or died just for a game update, there was no way to get your items back. RIP, happened to me a few times as well. If you died a second time, your first grave would collapse. This is still the same today, I believe, until this update's gone through. Many items were always lost on death, and you had to return to an NPC to reclaim them. Things like untradables and stuff like that. The item loss was good for the game in some ways, as it kept prices more stable, particularly on equipment and consumables, which were often unclaimed. But it could go very bad. Losing the majority of your wealth because your internet dropped out can be enough to make some people stop playing altogether. Absolutely true. Like, there's been so many times people have said, I've just lost all my stuff and I guess I'm going to quit. Now, I get this DM actually even like recently where people do this and like they've had like a double death or something like that, or even if it's been lured and scammed, which is another thing that needs to be addressed in my opinion, and people just go, I guess I'm going to have to stop. And I go, no. Just put a lost item ticket, it will likely get fixed as long as it's genuine, it's fine. But then that's more work for Jagex as well, so this seems like a better thing. We want to reach a middle ground where items are still removed from the game due to the user's choice. This led to the sacrificing system and weighting the reclaim costs so that cheaper items had higher reclaim and sacrificing values. Cool, makes sense, right? Balancing. With our original balancing, we aimed to do much for the economy at the time, and not enough for the economy of the future. This peaked in 2011, with the Divine Spirit Shield reaching nearly 1 billion coins, but by 2015, very few items, discontinued items aside, were worth over 300 million. Those that were tended to be weapons and therefore items which would be protected on death. Yeah, so the prices and inflation and stuff has made it so death cost did actually make sense then, but now it kind of doesn't. And that was the problem. Like, there wasn't a problem that death cost was just a bad design. It was just that back then it was good, but today it wasn't. Fast forward to 2022, and individual armor pieces are worth more valuable than the most expensive items of 2015. Players who utilize switches carry even more valuable items too. If you die and lose a party hat, 10 million is a pretty small price to pay to get it back, but that's a rather on the steep side for regular items. If we'd had further price thresholds, we might not even be discussing the problem now. Hindsight, eh? Yeah, so that again, it makes sense. Currently, less than 5% of items on in death are sacrificed, and the invention skill now allows for removal of items from the economy on a much larger scale. This means that we actually don't need the sacrificing system anymore. Removing it would allow us to simplify the death cost into a flat reclaim cost. Let's see how that looks in comparison. Okay, so we've already gone through all this. So if you want, what we can do here is we can skip through this, and you can check out the first video, which I will link in the description. I will find it, I'll link it. You can find it there where I go over all this. But basically, it's saying that these are the current death cost, and the new one is 1% of it rather than like 15% and 1% of like massive prizes. It all is just one item is 1%, so it's a lot cheaper basically in short terms. This will be a massive reduction in death cost, with every item having its reclaim cut by at least 80%, so much easier. Removing the fixed reclaim from the system will also make further reductions. When gravestones were the main death mechanic, items such as the Enhanced Excalibur and the Assassin's Surgeon Ring were destroyed when you died. This acted as a gold sink, since you had to travel to the NPC who gave you the item and buy it back. So even though it might have seemed like it's only like 500 coins for an Excalibur, if everybody was doing that all the time, because people weren't buying the actual stuff back, they were just like sacking off the Excalibur, not the end of the world. But now people don't use the gravestone at all. The current death system maintained these item-specific gold sinks, but added quality of life improvements where you could simply pay that fee on death instead of having to travel to the NPC to reclaim manually. It's jarring that these fees can be higher than the reclaim costs for many items, and the link to the direct reclaim cost isn't clear. To simplify these systems, fees will be changed to the base reclaim cost of that item. If you destroy the item, you will still have to pay the full price to get it back. That makes sense. So if an Excalibur is 500 coins to reclaim it, now when you die with an Excalibur, it's 500 coins, whereas I guess in the past it must have been more. Simply changing the price would just be a quick ninja fix, but nothing's that simple, is it? We also need to look at the wider game economy to understand what impact changing these values will have, because of course, when I die 10 times on stream because I'm terrible, I'm giving death like what? Like 50 to 100 mil, depending on how much my death costs are, and that's the gold sink from one player. Imagine if you just remove that from all the other players. And obviously I die more than most people probably, but you know what I mean. Anyway, economy changes. To truly understand death costs and their impact, we need to look at the amount of gold in the game. The most important information point here is the daily gold delta. That's how much gold is generated minus the amount of gold spent and removed from the game. In the game economy, it's okay to have a positive delta, more gold added than removed, but it's not so good if the gap gets too big. So that's basically explain what it is. It's at the end of the day, how much gold is extra that came into the game than actually left the game. So here are a few example scenarios. You kill a creature, it drops 3 coins, and 3 coins are added to the game. You kill a creature, it drops a signet ring, and you sell an G for max cash. There's literally none added to that because you take the cash from someone else. You kill a creature, it drops Hazardous signet ring, and you alch it plus 300k. Yeah, so there's more in the game. Okay. The amount of gold in game will drastically differ from day to day, such as on a weekend when escapers generally have more play time. The data presented here is averaged over a longer term to flatten out the daily spikes. With this in mind, it's time for our quiz. Jot down how much gold you think is added to the game and spent on a daily basis. Holy crap, right, let's have a quick guess. This is the spoiler, so I'm gonna say added to the game, which gotta be in... It's got to be in the trillions, right? Like, it's got to be in is it in the trillions, or am I way off? I was going to guess trillions. I don't know specifically than that. Okay, so added is 201 billion. Is that right? Okay, it's not. Okay, I'm miles away, but 201 billion. Holy crap. Holy crap. 201 billion is added every day. I was like 1 trillion, 2 trillion, miles off. 13,251,256. So there's 112 bill, nearly 113 bill spent every day, and that's like death cost and anything that takes coins out of the game. And then there's 88 billion in every single day. 88 billion is added to the game. 88 billion more is left in the game at the end of the day. So yeah. Now open your notebook again, because this time the spoiler reveals the top 10 gold sources and the top 10 gold sinks, the amount of gold each added, and the percentage of total. Can you guess them all? Sources can appear multiple times. Alchemy appears with both invention machines and high alchemy. General stores appear in both lists as well. And what do you think the percentage will look like? Eyes down. Okay, so the top 10 gold sources, top 10 gold sinks, the amount of gold each added, percentage of each total. Added, I really don't know this one. We'll just have a look. So, gold, yeah, I mean, alchemy was absolutely going to be the highest. Like, it just was. It just absolutely was. And spent as deaths, yeah, that makes sense. So deaths is like way up there. So they definitely needed to do a difference here. General stores, that's interesting. That's so high. Added general stores. Wait, people are selling general stores. This is like Iron Man. Does this count Iron Man as well, maybe? So alchemy's here and here. This is the invention machines. Holy crap. I guess people don't stand around alch anymore, though. So that makes sense. No, this data does not include spirit shards, Richie pet donations, or a handful of other sources. Since identifying these emissions, we have made changes. To track them properly, but we need long-term data. However, based on separate investigations, it's not expected any of them will make a significant impact on gold generated or spent. This one was much more difficult, so well done if you got even close with any of your guesses. That one, yeah, I didn't even bother with that one. I wasn't going to get there. On the gold added side, we can see 80% of the top 10 comes through converting items to coins. Which items are being converted to coins most is an important data point when attempting to reduce the gold added in this manner. But that's a topic for another day. So they're talking here pretty much about any alchables that you get from bosses. In my opinion, any alchables that bosses drop, the invention machines, that's what people are using them for. They're taking all their alchables, their salvage, all this sort of stuff, chucking it in the invention machines. That's what I do with mine all the time. So everyone else does with theirs, and that's where it's all coming from. And it kind of sucks that all the bosses just drop alchables, but it is a stable way to guarantee a boss's gold per hour. So it kind of makes sense on that side. But yeah, they said they're going to use that topic another day though. So on the gold spent side, this is where making changes is a major concern. It is by far the biggest way we remove gold from the game, and any meaningful reduction to a reclaim value players will be happy with will cause a huge shift in the daily delta. This means we need to find a way to make up this deficit in order to adjust death costs. How much gold do we need to account for here? Due to the technical limitations we have to make an estimate based on the potential decrease in death costs and the 70 billion daily gold spent. Holy crap. Right. So the reduction is 90%. The new amount is 7 bill, so the gap to fill is 63 bill. Okay, so there's a massive difference that they actually need to do here, right? This is huge. When you consider general stores converted around 21 billion more to gold than is spent across both tables, we need a gold sink that is 10 times more effective than the second biggest gold sink. So what approaches could we take here? Here's some ideas we considered. Nerf item to coin conversion. Okay, that makes sense. So like make alchemy not as good. Nerf alchemy machines, also make them not as good, so that makes sense, but they're not viable. They said here, was this viable? No. If you guys want to pause this and read the rest of it, you can, but I don't want to keep this video too long. New content doesn't close the gap. No, it makes sense. General stores partially, and then no. GE tariffs. So this is obviously the Grand Exchange tax, which is where we are going to be going with, and that's what they're going to go with. So it makes sense. We looked at the Grand Exchange trades to predict how much gold a tariff would remove. 5% removes 21.53, 1% is 43.7, 1.5% is 64 bill, and 2% is 86 bill. And then I think this is what they settled with, right? At 2%. Is it? I don't know. 1.5, but we aim for 2%. There you go. Yeah, so this makes sense. I think 2% makes sense. To add that much extra completely makes sense, because then you're covering yourself for the future as well. Of course, these values assumed all player behavior will remain the same, but it is impossible to predict how this might change. Players may decide to sell more items in player-to-player trades, which will continue to have no tariffs. The 1.5% estimate would theoretically cover the death cost deficit, but we aim for 2% to have a buffer. This makes sense, because they'll be on World 2 and they'll be trading stuff like person to person to save money. Absolutely, I know they will. There have already people been talking about it in streams. They will. We did consider whether or not we should look into to reduce the overall daily delta, but ultimately decided on the ensuring the death cost was covered by keeping day-to-day impact to a minimum. We do believe the economy needs further improvements, but we wish to monitor the impact of these changes first. The release tariff will be 2%, not applying to the items traded below 50 coins each. Okay, that makes sense. Here's how this looks in game. So you've got this, and then if you got 1, it's 477. And if you're selling 5,000, then it becomes, so it'll be slightly different. When you open the interface to sell an item, the total price preview box will show the amount of coins you receive minus the type of coins. This is automatically applied when the transaction completes, so you don't have to worry about the extra steps when it comes to selling your items. This is applied on per item basis, so you can cancel or relist your trade at any time with no additional penalties. Good, that's good. Meanwhile, the info box provides a tooltip detailing how the tariff works. Okay, cool. If it's less, it doesn't make a difference. It's exactly the same. A tariff will not be applied to items worth less than 50 coins, as the singular item tariff would round down to 0. Beautiful. Other death changes. In addition to changing reclaim costs, removing sacrifice functionality, and removing fixed death costs, we've looked at making some other system and quality of life improvements. Cool. They're announcing this stuff. Beautiful. Holy shit, there's actually quite a lot. Didn't mean to swear, but it is what it is. Okay, so Ring of Death. The current on Ring of Death effect is to teleport you away at a cost of 15% of the ring's charge, rather than going to death. This item has largely served as a band-aid to the death cost problem, but we no longer feel it's right to effectively have 2 competing death costs. That makes sense. The Ring of Death will no longer teleport you to safety. Instead, you get the opportunity to finish your kills and or escape. Upon dying, you will revive at full health, and you get 3 minutes of the quick hitting damage over time effect. The damage this deals will increase every hit, meaning it increases by 100% of the base hit every minute. After 3 minutes, the damage will stop, and there will be a cooldown of 3 minutes before it can effective again. The effect and cooldown can also be cleared by entering a bank or praying at the altar in Wolves Retreat. This will take effect before Sign of Life kick in. Signs will work while the damage over time is dealing damage. Other reviving effects of the immortality ability will also work. Wait, so this is actually kind of cool. So if you die, you can still finish your kill. Ring of Death just became really interesting. What do you guys think about this? Has this still got any use? I guess if you can comfortably kill a boss, then there's no problem. Maybe this will be interesting for people with like lower gear, doing things like Carapac hard mode in phase 4. You would bring a Ring of Death and use that in phase 4. Then if you die, right as you're killing Carapac at the end, you can actually still kill him again. I think that's kind of cool, and I think this is really interesting. You could also use it on Zamorak in the last phase as well. The Ring of Death just became really interesting in my opinion. Overflow storage. Previously, if Death was holding your items when you died a second time, he was forced to discard your previous items. Now he's had a bit of a new year tidy up, and he's got space for additional overflow storage. This storage space is more expensive, and items will cost 1% of the grand exchange cost to replace, so it's always best to reclaim your items as soon as you can. This is fine. Unlike regular Death reclaim, overflow items can only be reclaimed to your bank, and each item must be reclaimed individually. Okay, so basically this is a way to, if you die again, then you're okay. Your items will still be there, but it will cost more. This is good. It's a quality of life people. It stops people losing like stuff that they were going back for. But at the same time, you want to do it because 1% is way more than 0.1% or whatever it was. Destroy on death items. A common feature on items is to have a destroy option rather than the drop. This is useful for unique items or to give out a warning if you can only reclaim it from a specific location. By default, this also means the item is lost on death, and sometimes that specific item should be safe for death to keep a hold of. We want to investigate removing this as a feature, but there are tens of thousands of items, including one-time quest progress items from older content that poses a big risk to change at scale. So we scale back to trying to filter out some items and make changes to them. Some of the items that can now be stored by death include, okay, so they've added a few other ones to save you some time. So it's like archaeology consumables, essential fragments, divination locations, divine charges, eye of the dungeoneering rewards rings, statue rock for play. Okay, so there's a few things in here that basically when you die now, you don't lose them, he will keep them for you. So rather than changing it for everything, they've just picked out something that they think will be worthwhile. Interface redesign. We have made steps to simplify the death interface, improving navigation and providing clearer information about death mechanics. Here are some screenshots of the reworked UI. Okay, so Number of items with death is 38 with depth, 25 in overflow storage, and there you go. So that's fine. We've also added some extra detail into the gravestone timer and renamed it to death status. If you have a gravestone, this will show you the gravestone timer as it usually does. Otherwise, it will show the number of items stored with death, and if you are at risk of losing the items, it will warn you to reclaim the items. When you have no items with death, there will be nothing to show. Beautiful. The future. While discussing the wider game economy, we really wanted to make this update even more impactful. So we have been investigating ways to increase the max cash limit. We feel this is really important for the long-term ability to trade items as more valuable items are available. Updating all of our game systems, including the Grand Exchange, to support this is a huge undertaking, so we took the difficult decision to split this into 2 projects. Death cost improvements outlined here will be making its way to a graveyard near you in January. Beautiful. While we're aiming to get the max cash increase with you in the first half of 2023. That makes sense, that's fine. The current expectation is that the money pouch will be able to hold above max cash, and the cash can then be traded both in player-to-player trades and through the Grand Exchange. Most other inventories, such as the Backpacker Bank, will have the current limitations, but richer players should no longer need to juggle between multiple storage locations, spirit shards, and as the money pouch will be able to handle gold amounts into the quintillions, sorry, that's a lot of zeros. Yeah, so basically, this is coming towards later in the year, but at the same time, it just means that you guys can use the Grand Exchange, and you won't really have a reason to put coins in the bank, and we won't need to worry with spirit shards anymore. The end for now. Thanks for taking the time to read today's development blog. The changes may take a little getting used to, but we'll continually be monitoring the impact of the economy, and of course, we may make further tweaks in future. Whatever happens next, we'll always be aiming for the best outcome for the game as a whole, and we'll always keep you informed. Here's just some spectacular deaths in 2023. This is so good. There's so much stuff in here, guys. I'm not going to spend much longer to drag the video out. It's nearly 22 minutes long, so hopefully you all found this useful information. Obviously, I wanted to bring this to you in case you hadn't been aware that it's been posted or anything. But thanks for watching. I appreciate it. This is amazing. I think it's absolutely great. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I can't wait for this early January or in January at some point, so very, very soon. And yeah, anyway, I'll catch you all in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye.